Cracking my eyelids apart, I squinted at the brightness. Sunlight streamed through the windows, mingled with a salt-laced breeze. My body was heavy with the limpness which comes after a slumber, each movement a struggle. I shivered, cold, except for the warmth over my hand. A strong grip, but whose? Someone sat beside me, the face a blur as I blinked to clear my vision. I did not mind the touch. It was a comfort through the memories which curled at the edge of my consciousness, of blood, of pain, and terror. I jerked upright, my eyes locked onto Wenji's, softer than I had ever seen them before. My skin heated as I tugged my hand away. How long had he been here? How long had I slept? I swung my legs over the side of the bed, trying not to wince from the ache. He frowned. You've been asleep for days. Take it slow. I feel fine. Despite my bravado, I lurched to my feet. I was lightheaded, swaying where I stood. Pride alone kept me from sinking back down onto the bed as I gripped the wooden frame to steady myself. He slipped an arm around me, his hold light yet firm, as he helped me to the nearest chair. Prince Yanming, is he safe? What happened? My questions fell out in a rush. You'd do better to worry about yourself next time. He lifted the teapot and poured out a stream of reddish-brown tea into a porcelain cup, pushing it toward me. Pu'er. I inhaled its rich and earthy fragrance before taking a long sip, the liquid sliding down my throat with a reviving warmth. Prince Yangming is well and has been demanding to see you. He paused to refill my cup. After Governor Renyu's death, the merfolk surrendered. Their punishment is yet to be determined. Memories flashed through my mind of the sick pleasure the governor had taken in tormenting me, his haunted expression as Wenji's sword plunged through his chest, the crimson blood which had pooled around his body, sunken in the terrible stillness of death. I was glad for it, I told myself, even as my stomach churned. The governor would have killed me as viciously as he could, but I still found little triumph in the moment, and though he had gone, the scars of his deceit remained, the lives he had stolen, those irrevocably destroyed. The merfolk may not be to blame. The governor had a strange power that helped him gain their trust. His voice, his pendant. I frowned, trying to make sense of my fragmented memories. He used it on me, too. His face darkened. How did you resist? I sealed off my hearing, I grimaced. Stupid, perhaps. It made fighting him much harder, but I couldn't think of anything else. His hand clenched on the table, until his knuckles were white around the joints. Fortunately, the governor's powers were weak, coming from the pendant, as you guessed. A true mind talent could have bent even your will in seconds. Once in thrall, he would have held you till your end or his. An echo of the governor's boast rousing anew my fears from before. As though sensing my distress, he reached across the table and touched my arm. I should not have left you. You wouldn't have been so hurt if I had stayed. If you had stayed, maybe we'd all be bowing to Governor Renyu now, I added gravely. This is not your fault. My safety is my own care, and I certainly had no intention of letting him kill me. I would have made him regret his attempts, eventually. I have no doubt that you would have. He leaned forward, inspecting my face. If you're well enough, we should leave soon. I've already sent the others back. However, Prince Yanji wants to see you before we go. He is in the audience chamber this morning. I rose, feeling a little steadier as I smoothed down my pale green robe, only now having the presence of mind to check if I was appropriately dressed. Such plain garments might raise brows from the impeccably attired Eastern Sea Court, but after having almost died, I had greater concerns on my mind. The moment we entered the hall, Wenji was called aside by an Eastern Sea general. I kept to the outskirts of the room, searching for Prince Yanji, finally finding him deep in conversation with another immortal. The stranger was turned away from me, yet the way he stood and how his dark blue brocade robe sat across his shoulders were oddly familiar. When Prince Yanji noticed me, he inclined his head. As his companion swung around, his dark eyes pierced mine. It was Li Wei, the last person I expected to see here. A quiver rippled through my heart, dread or joy. I could no longer tell apart the emotions he evoked in me, but he was dear to me still, no matter how I wished he were not. Li Wei spoke briefly to Prince Yanji before coming toward me. Conscious of those watching us, I bowed to him with all due ceremony. Rise, he said in a strained voice. I met his gaze without a flicker of emotion, grateful for teacher Dummling's training, that I could now slip on this mask despite the turmoil which raged within. Why are you here? When did you arrive? 3 days ago. He lifted the skydrop tassel by his waist. The gem was clear, the silver flecks swirling in its depths. When it turned red, I rushed here as quickly as I could. I clutched the stone by my waist, the twin to his. A wild urge gripped me to toss it away, to bury it with our past, like the temptation to rip out a scab before the wound had healed. Why did I wear it? Why cling to this remembrance? Sentimental fool, I scolded myself, forcing my grip to loosen. When I got here, the battle was already over. You were unconscious, blood streaming from your wounds as Captain Wenji carried you from the tent. I feared the worst. He stilled as though struggling with himself. You were gravely injured. Prince Yanji had you brought to the palace so the royal healers could extract the venom from your body. Any more would have killed you. He leaned toward me now, taking my hand in his, our palms brushing, the tips of his fingers pressing against mine. Taken aback, I stilled. Heat sparked against my skin as his power coursed through my body. My mind cleared. A reviving strength spread through me, but I pulled away. While he was a healer, skilled in life magic, the thought of his energy mingling with mine aroused too many unsettling emotions. Thank you. You don't need to do that. I groped for something else to say. Anything in the awkward silence which descended upon us. What were you discussing with Prince Yanji? His expression turned somber, his eyelids lowering, a grave, strange affliction. Since the Battle of Xianglu, he found difficulties wielding his magic. We believe a piece of dark ore wedged in his armor suppressed his powers. How is he now? I asked, concerned. Once it was removed, he recovered. What metal is this? How did it get in there? No one has come across anything like it before. Archer Fei Mao suspects it came from Shadow Peak, a crevice which he fell into. Our scouts found traces of the ore there, but nothing beyond remnants. Did someone take it? A chilling thought. He nodded tersely. It appears to have been mined. Such a thing could be catastrophic in the wrong hands. I've warned Prince Yanji to be vigilant and to alert us should he discover anything. He fell silent. In the sudden quiet, my senses sharpened. How close we stood, speaking with the same ease we always had before. There it was, still, that unseen cord wrapped around our hearts, frayed, yet intact, despite my attempts to snap it. Perhaps it was a bond which could never be severed, rooted in our friendship before our ill-fated love. I did not want this, for my spirits to leap and plummet in the same instant, that gaping hollow in my chest to reopen. But my near death was a blunt reminder that life was precious. Precarious, even for an immortal, and right now I felt more alive than I had in months. His scent flooded me with memories from our time in the courtyard of eternal tranquility. I could almost hear the rumbling from the waterfall. My fingers curled as I stepped back from Li Wei, retreating a safe distance as cool air rushed between us. His mouth opened to speak, but then he glanced up as someone approached. First Archer. It was Prince Yanji, along with Wenji, whose face seemed hewn from the stone as he bowed to Li Wei. I would have bowed too, except Prince Yanji raised his hand to dismiss formalities. I am glad you have recovered. My family owes you a debt of gratitude for risking yourself to protect my brother. Should you ever need our aid, it would be our honor to assist you. His gracious words touched me. There is no doubt, Your Highness, Governor Renyu's ambitions stretch beyond here to the four seas. If left unchecked, he would have brought great suffering to all. Prince Yanji shook his head in disbelief. It's fortunate Captain Wenxi and you put an end to this. What of the governor's pendant? Li Wei asked. Destroyed. I recalled the arrow I had ripped from my hand, used to shatter the stone. Li Wei sighed. It's a relief that such a dangerous artifact is gone, that it can never be used again. But I can't help wishing we had the chance to study it. We know so little of its magic, I fear it's to our disadvantage. We must know what we contend against. I understood his meaning, and yet I was glad to never see that accursed pendant again. What of those who served Governor Renyu, those who attacked us? Will they be brought to justice? Wenji asked, with an edge to his tone. Did he recall the Celestials who were slain in the battle? I could not forget his anguish as he saw them fall. Justice will be served as the Eastern Sea decides.
Li Wei said grimly, though it would appear both sides were deceived by the governor. Your Highness, regardless of their excuses, the merfolk rebelled against their sovereign. Your own father believes such matters should be dealt with harshly, so none will attempt again. Wenji's lips curved into a mocking smile. Did he enjoy baiting Li Wei? He certainly seemed to care little for the prince's favor. I said to Wenji, I felt the power of the enchantment. I almost fell under its sway. It might just as easily have been me under its spell. He did not reply, yet his jaw clenched as though he was stricken by my words. Many of the merfolk appeared dazed, unsure why they had revolted. Prince Yanji told us. We will investigate further to determine their innocence. Those found blameless will be released under watch at first. Some will be invited to remain at our court as intermediaries between us and the merfolk. Closer ties will prevent this from happening again. The merfolk would not have fared so well under the Celestial Emperor's justice. Your father and you are indeed wise and merciful, I said without intent to flatter. Before he could reply, footsteps pattered across the floor as a pair of small arms was flung around my waist. Swinging around, I lifted Prince Yanming into the air, ignoring the ache in my body as he whooped in delight. When I set him down again, his expression grew solemn, the corners of his mouth turned down. You did not follow us. You lied. His tone was accusing. Guilt pricked me. I crouched down, staring into his face. I am sorry. I couldn't go with you then, but I should not have said I would. I am glad you didn't die, and thank you. He held out his hand to me. Nestled in his palm was a small dragon, exquisitely crafted from red paper. I picked it up, holding it between my thumb and finger, afraid to crush the delicate paper. Thank you. I'll cherish this always. His lower lip wobbled. May the dragons protect you on your journey. He dashed the back of his hand over his eyes as he turned and ran away. I watched until his little figure disappeared, a thickness forming in my throat. Wherever you go, you'll always have a place here, whether in our court or as our friend. Prince Yanji spoke in earnest, and something eased deep inside me at the thought of having another home in this world. Prince Yanji, it's time we left, Li Wei said in glacial tones. Thank you for your hospitality, Your Highness. When she spoke with equally cold formality, the palpable shift in their attitude was both puzzling and unprovoked, and the way they were looking at Prince Yanji was decidedly unfriendly. I shook my head to banish these thoughts, wondering if I had imagined it. Fortunately, Prince Yanji seemed oblivious to the sudden chill, a smile playing on his lips as he said, We thank the Celestial Kingdom for coming to our aid.